Oaks is my son, who is no longer with us here. He was my second child, my first son, and he was born with a congenital heart defect called truncus arteriosus. Shortly after Oaks was born, we learned about a few other birth defects that he had. He ended up having a double lung transplant when he was about 4 months old. And lived in the hospital for a total of about 15 months.
Are you gonna kick him?
Oaks was such a strong child. He got his nickname Mighty Oaks just because he went through so much as a baby.
Woo! Yeah.
When things were steady, he was a happy kid. He smiled a lot, he sucked his thumb. He loved his big sister, Isla. He flirted with all of the nurses. I didn't realize babies could flirt, but he got that down. He was just a sweet baby, and I always thought, despite his heart and his lungs and all of the physical challenges that he had, I always thought he was just perfect. When Oaks was about 2.5, 3 months old, we learned that he would need a lung transplant. And before he could be listed for a lung transplant, we met with someone from Children's Hospital that was really looking into our insurance. And she sat down with Greg and I and suggested that we do a little fundraiser and come up with this emergency fund. She suggested we raise about $30,000, just in case. We mentioned that to some dear friends, and they ran with that idea. And so they planned, just in a couple months, a golf tournament with like an auction dinner afterwards. And the suggested $30,000, they blew it away. They raised $100,000 for our family in one night. At a certain point, we knew we wouldn't need that money, and we knew that Oaks wasn't going to live a full life. We started giving it away, and we were just meeting families organically there in the Heart Center who were struggling financially. And so at first, I would go to the ATM in the basement and withdraw $100 and put it in an envelope and hand it to a nurse and say, please take this to the mom around the corner, down the hall. Don't tell her it came from me. And eventually a social worker came to me and said, you have got to stop handing out cash in the hospital. This is not sustainable. So while Oaks was in the hospital, going into surgery, recovering, kind of fighting his own fight, I and Greg and a couple of friends were really establishing the foundation of Mighty Oaks Heart Foundation, where we were identifying families who needed help, and then we were awarding financial grants to these families. And since then, you know, that was 12 years ago, we're still doing the same thing, but we're doing it on a bigger scale.
Avery, almost 3. Ben and Logan just turned 1. Halfway through the pregnancy, that Logan's heart was formed perfectly, was normal functioning, and that Ben had the defect. Logan came straight home from the hospital with us. Ben was immediately transferred to Children's at birth. I did not hold him, kiss him that first day of his life. But once we went home with Logan, I was just back and forth to the hospital every single day. We live about 35 minutes from Children's, so every single day, and especially before Logan started daycare, I would take him most of the time by myself, take Logan with me to the hospital to be with Ben all day during the day, and then we'd go home every night.
One of Oak's doctors who gave us the most comforting words. He suggested that the reason that Oaks fought so hard and was so mighty was because Greg and myself and Isla showed up every day. We gave him every reason to fight and every reason to stay with us. And as Oak's mom, knowing I was gonna say goodbye to him, that was such a gift. That has always stuck with me as a gift that I want to give to other families.
They were able to provide us financial support, with Ben being in the hospital and me having 2 other small children. I wasn't really able to work, so, we went from a 2-income household to a 1-income household. But it was really important for us to still be able to send our other children to daycare so that I could be there at the hospital for Ben while he was waiting for his heart. So not having to worry about how we were going to pay for things was a huge sense of relief.
It brings back the best memories to see Ben and the Hayes family. Their story's very different than ours. Ben is so different than Oak's, but there's a lot of similarities. Ben clearly is a fighter, and he has some of that perseverance and mightiness that Oak's has. It just fills my heart to know that we've been able to play this small part in supporting them and loving them and giving them the opportunity to stay together as a family unit while Ben has been so sick.
Heart defects and heart disease, they don't care if you are rich or poor, if the parents are young, old, single parents, black, white. Heart defects affect all kinds of families. It's okay to reach out and acknowledge that you do need help, and it is a very scary and trying time to go through. And organizations, especially the Mighty Oaks Heart Foundation, that can give even the slightest bit of relief and take some of that mental load is more helpful than they will ever really know.
As Oak's mom, it is kind of a dream come true that we can offer that financial support and give those parents a big hug and give them the freedom. Just stay here with your kid, love on them. We know that that is going to be the best medicine that kid gets, and hopefully that love and attention is healing for that family, for that child, and then they can go home just as soon as possible.